Ladies and gentlemen, you are listening to the Pranzata Podcast. I am your host, Andrea Pranzatelli. Today we have a special guest. His name is Andrew Ginsberg. He is a stand-up comedian from New York City. I am very honored that he came all the way here from New York City to be on my podcast today. Before we get into it, don't forget to hit subscribe. This is a video podcast that I do on YouTube where I interview comedians, musicians, and different artists and entrepreneurs from the New Jersey, New York, and Philadelphia area. I have a quick... sorry to keep you waiting, but I have a quick apology to make to my listeners before we get into this. Public apology. Last week's episode 39. Wow, this is episode 40. That's exciting. But episode 39, I listened back to the content. It was good content. However, I used the word like so much that I want to kill myself. I don't know. Do you use the word like a lot in your speech?
Like, what do you mean?
Like, I don't know. Okay, so I'm going to make an attempt in this podcast episode to not use the word like unless it makes sense. So like, I just did it. Oh my God, I just did it.
Jeez.
So for example, this coffee tastes like shit. That would be an appropriate way to use the word like.
Right.
But I am not going to use it as a filler word. If I use it, you can punch me in the face.
I don't want to punch you in the face.
And it will be good. So let's get into it. Pranzata Podcast. Okay.
Can I ask you a question?
Yes.
Did you get feedback that you say like too much?
Nobody said it.
Okay.
But I listened back to it and I was disgusted.
You disgusted yourself with your amount of likes?
I was disgusted with myself for the amount of likes I said. It makes me sound like an idiot.
No.
And if you strip the likes away, the actual content was good. But I just sound like a fucking moron.
Underneath all those likes, there's some meaty material.
Yeah, it made me sound like a Valley Girl, like stoner. Like I'm just like I don't know, like, and I'm just like, oh my God, I want to kill myself.
No, I understand. That's like the first time you listen to not that I'm saying it's the first time you listen to yourself, but when you listen to yourself back though, don't you think you find like all kinds of nuances in how you talk that you hate?
How about you? Do you listen back to your like? I just did it. Do you listen back to your stand-up material? Yeah. And what don't you like about it?
Everything. I hated everything about it.
The sound of your voice.
Like, the sound of my voice, the things I talk about, the person I am. Like all those things come clear when I speak. Yeah. And I'm like, man, this is what I'm doing. This is what I'm projecting.
Don't you think every either musician or comedian, artist, they're kind of self-critical in that type of way, and that's what makes them become better.
Yeah, I would imagine if you listen to yourself back and you're like, I'm incredible.
There are people like that.
I know.
There are people like that in stand-up who are doing open mics, and I don't know if you know any of these people.
I know them all.
I have so many questions for you that I'm trying to stay focused.
Sorry, I'll stop.
No. I get a little bit ADD, and I'm excited to have you here because
I'm glad to be here.
Because this is an actual New York comic. A lot of my listeners are Jersey comics, and we kind of all want to be you.
Well, first of all, I'm like a Jersey I just happen to live in New York.
True.
I'm genetically from New Jersey though, originally.
He is genetically from. Weird. So weird connection. You went to Old Bridge High School.
I went there.
You know the guy I lost my virginity to. Because
I know everybody in Old Bridge.
He hit me up and he was like, you know that guy? I'm like, yeah, he lives in New York. And he's like, no, he's from Old Bridge. And I'm like, oh yeah, that's such a weird. Yeah. It's just so funny to me because New York is such a huge place. So of all the random coincidences.
Well, Old Bridge is like a 6 degrees from like separation type of thing. You know what I mean? Where I always meet people that are somehow connected to Old Bridge.
Really?
And if there's a guy in Old Bridge taking virginities, I know him. No, I'm just kidding. But I know I meet so many people like from Old Bridge, which is just a farm town, just a cider mill. Yeah. In New Jersey.
It's a weird place. Yeah. I wouldn't have known about the place if it wasn't for that guy that I was dating. Because I lived in this area where we are now. And long story short, he went to my school briefly. And then he went back to Old Bridge, and that's how we knew each other. Otherwise, I would have.
Was your school an alternative school for people who got expelled?
Not to call this person out, but it was kind of like that. Okay, I didn't go to an alternative school, but there was a group of kids who were, alternative kids. I don't know how to describe them.
Yeah, I got
I'm trying to politely say the kids that got in trouble.
Yeah.
There was like
the bad kids.
The bad kids. There was a group of bad kids in a home, and they went to my school.
Gotcha.
So it was like that, pretty much.
All right.
Yeah. But I want to explain to the listeners who you are and how we know each other so they understand what's going on.
Sure. I got all carried away because I see the camera and the lights, and I'm like, oh, we're in it now.
We're in it.
Yeah. All right, let's do it.
So, so I'll go, I guess.
Yeah, please. It's your show.
So first of all, I want you to explain to them what your show is in New York City that I do.
Oh yeah.
That I join. What's the show? What is it?
I have a show at a bar, right? It's called the Village Idiot Comedy Show. It takes place at the Juke Bar on the first and third Wednesday of every month. And it's a variety show, but it's not a variety show. I take that back. It's a regular stand-up comedy show where nothing else happens. But what makes it a variety show is we have music. Yeah. In between the acts, which is what you've been doing. Yeah. And basically, it's just a show at a bar. Yeah. But it's a really good show at a bar. He's selling himself short. Yeah. It's a really good show. Thank you.
He gets some, I don't even know how you do it, but you get some really good comedians on there. Like you've had Mark Normand on there.
Yeah.
I had the last time I performed, I saw Cypher Sound.
Yeah, he was a good one.
Yeah, there's just like a lot of really cool people I met. Sarah Tolamash.
Yeah, she was great.
Yeah, so it's a really cool show.
We got Gary Goldman.
Goldman, yeah. So you're definitely selling yourself short. It's not just.
We've had a lot of incredible guests.
Yes.
I won't lie about that. We've gotten really lucky.
Yeah. So basically, he has a musician friend from Old Bridge.
Everybody's from Old Bridge.
Who plays music at the show. And he got kind of busy with his band stuff. And he randomly found me on Instagram. He followed me because of my music, but we weren't friends and we didn't know each other.
Right.
And
he didn't tell me that, but
no.
he said he knew you, but that's it all worked out.
He probably just wanted someone to fill the spot so he could go do whatever he had to do. So he's like, yeah, I know her. I'm calling him out now. We never actually met. He just he just knew me from Instagram because he followed my whatever piano playing, and he was just like, hey, you like music and comedy, so can you do this spot? And I was like, fuck, hell yeah. And it's been history ever since. Here we are.
And it's been great. Yeah. I've been so glad since you joined the team to play music every show that we can have you. Like, Justin's been our guy. Me and Justin's his name, the guitar player in the band.
Yeah. Shout out to Justin.
Justin Garcia. Justin Guitarcia. And we've been friends since we were 14.
Yeah.
Like when we were best friends growing up, we were in bands together and stuff.
Yeah.
And then we didn't speak for 10 years. And then during the pandemic beginnings, we started speaking again on the phone.
Yeah.
Because we were home and we caught up and became friends again. Then when I started the show, Justin was the guy to play guitar in between comics because he's really funny himself and he's a great musician.
So you actually haven't been doing this show that long.
I've only been doing it for like a year.
Get the hell out of here.
Yeah.
That's crazy to me because, like I said, he got such good names on there that I thought you've been doing it for years.
Yeah, no, I mean, we got really fortunate because out the gate, the thing about the Village Idiot show is we do it at a bar, at an Irish pub, right?
Yeah.
So Juke Bar. Shout out to the Juke Bar. So basically, when we wanted to do the show, every club in New York City was still closed because of regulations.
Yeah.
And but the bars were still allowed to be open.
Yeah.
And there was no technicality around like whether it was illegal to do a show indoors. You could, just nobody was. Mm-hmm. And within the 2-week period when we were going to start the show, everything in New York was flipping back to normal. So there was like a timeline where they were going to reopen New York. Yeah. So we started our show 2 weeks before that official date when all the comedy clubs would open again.
Yeah.
And because we started the show, I think 2 weeks early, there's this huge time period where all the comedians in New York City, even the big names like Mark Normand and Jess Kirsten and those types of people weren't really doing comedy.
So you kind of had this lucky, I get what you're saying, like everything kind of met that it worked out because you were one of the only places open. So they're like, fuck it. And then you made all these that's really fucking sweet.
Yeah. We just really asked people and they said yes. There was no secret. Yeah. We were just like, hey, we have a place to do comedy. We think it's going to be full of people.
That's fucking awesome.
Yeah.
I'm gonna kind of re-ask him questions that I was just asking him off air because it is stuff I want to talk about on the podcast.
Yeah.
So me and my last guest, Jesse, shout out to Jesse Montanez. He was here for episode 39.
Shout out.
We were kind of asking I was asking him what he thought about New York and if there's going to be another closure and comedy clubs closing again. And we were kind of trying to guess, but you'd be the person to know because you're in there right now. So you hear more of what's going on. Do you think there's going to be another, like a second closure?
That's a heavy question, man.
Yeah.
I don't think so. I don't think that people have an appetite for it as much in the city. Is my like, all I can give you is my, like, I'm not a politician or anything. Yeah. You know, I can only give you my general feel of things.
Yeah, like what have you been hearing, and more so. You know?
The appetite is for not closure among entertainers, like among comedians and people.
I was worried because I heard they were closing down Broadway stuff, but maybe that's just because it's larger events. That could be it.
it could be it. Like I said, I don't know like that type of stuff. I know that like of the people performing in New York, like they don't want to go close again. I think that they're open because I think the whole like people are just kind of the philosophy that people are sort of more educated on virus safety, I suppose. People are vaccinated. People are doing whatever they feel like they need to do to be healthy, so they want to continue to entertain. And I think most people in the city that I know that aren't comedians, which isn't that many people, but they're still going out and they want to do stuff. I think that, like you said, maybe closing of Broadway and stuff is just a temporary stopgap to not let things get out of control or something like that. But or where there's going to be massive like indoor events, I guess that they're slowing them down. But I think zooming out, like consensus wise, I don't think that there's an appetite amongst people to do that again. Generally, I don't know though. I mean, I don't know like what will happen though, but I don't think that people are like in the same mindset as they were in March 2020, where they were like, all right, yeah, like let's close everything down. Yeah,
I've been seeing different things pop up on Instagram every day, like music events and stuff like that. People being like, hey, we've decided to close for the week. Hey, so it's kind of freaking me out because I'm just like, okay, I thought things were kind of easing out and getting back to normal. So now it kind of feels like a repetition of 2020 where it's like, it started off with like, well, let's just do this. So I'm kind of nervous about that, especially because I was considering moving to New York. So I'm like, okay, is this just going to be a regular...
That's the thing. I don't think people want that to like regularly just go back inside. Yeah. And I think that things are different now because we've all been out like what I mean, for like a year, especially people that have been going to clubs and being on stage and stuff like that. So it's like you have a better gauge of the risks than you did in March 2020. Nobody knew what was going on.
And more of an understanding about the vaccines and how to work
and what you're comfortable just doing, like what you want to, like, people that I think don't do stuff will continue to not do stuff, and that's cool. Yeah. But I think people that want to do stuff are going to do it. And I don't think that people would like be really, I don't think there's an appetite for like that level of
precaution.
It's
more a matter of if the state mandates closures. That's different.
That's a whole different, that's a whole different thing. Yeah. That's a whole different thing. I don't have the qualifications to speak on it. I don't know. To me, I'm not about it. I don't know. I'd prefer to keep being out there.
I agree. I think at this point, because I've heard before that at some point everybody's just gonna get COVID. Yeah, I've heard that. Right. You know what I mean? I think the CDC even said that. You know what I mean? It's not just hearsay. The actual CDC said everybody at some point within like 5 years. I can't remember you can't quote me on that because I don't remember how many years exactly it was.
You have 5 years until you're getting COVID.
I think at a certain point everyone's gonna get it, and the whole thing with the vaccines and the masks and all that was just to slow down the spread, but the spread is inevitable. So that's interesting.
And I think, I don't know, I'm not a scientist, you know what I mean? But I would imagine, just don't quote me on this because like I said, I don't know, but my hunch is that the thinking is that if you're taking precautions against the virus, like if you're living like a healthy life, or you're like, I live like sort of a healthy lifestyle for the most part, or you're vaccinated or whatever you're doing, then you don't have to really be so concerned because like the problem with COVID obviously is people dying and being in the hospital. Yeah. But like even with this like the latest variants, they're very low numbers compared to the past. Yeah. So I think like everybody will get it, but I think it'll reduce in its weight of how it affects people over time. So it'll be less scary. Yeah. You know what I mean? Like people aren't terrified to get like a flu. I think over time in the consensus of the population, people will be like not scared of it because of these things. That's my hunch as just a cave person from New Jersey.
I know.
I don't know anything. I'm from Old Bridge.
It's funny. It's kind of changed of topic a little bit. You said something about while you're explaining that, you said something about you take care of your health. Yes. I've heard in some of your stand-up, you've talked about how I don't know if it was in your stand-up or if we just had a conversation. I can't remember now. But I know you've said that you've recently kind of went on a health turnaround where you quit smoking cigarettes and you quit drinking. Yeah. Why? Did you have a problem with drinking?
Wow, that was a sharp turn from what do you think is the future of COVID to do you have an alcohol problem or what's your fucking problem?
I get a little ADD and I was genuinely curious about that because I've heard you talk about it and I'm like, what happened? Did he have a drinking problem or is he just trying to live a healthy lifestyle? But I do want to talk about it too.
Andrea, some people love drinking. I love it. I love it so much. I love it more than everybody else.
Okay.
So, no, I'm just kidding. No, yeah, during So I was like a party animal type person.
Yeah.
That was my whole personality.
Really?
That was my whole identity. Yeah.
I can't pick. I know you're a stand-up comedian, so you have a big personality, but I can't picture you like doing kegs at a keg.
That was me. Well, I wasn't a bro, you
Yeah.
know. So I did do those things when I was younger, out of obligation to being 20 or whatever.
Yeah.
But I wasn't like that wasn't my style. My style was more like sit with one other friend and drink whiskey until 5 o'clock in the morning.
Okay.
And talk about how everything sucks, you know? But I did that a lot regularly for like a decade. And at the time when, it is actually, it relates to COVID. So I'll not to be this guy. People hate this guy. I know people hate this guy. I'm not necessarily this guy, but like I was living a really outrageous life and my whole identity was partying in the city. And then COVID happened, and I no longer could really live that way because.
So COVID is when you turned around.
Yeah, March 2020 is when I started changing things around because I was given awareness. Like,
so for you, COVID was a savior.
Yeah, pretty much. It saved my life. Yeah, because I felt like I was partying at such an extreme level. I didn't know that I was.
That you could have actually been at risk to die.
No, it's not even about COVID. I guess I could have been at risk, not die from COVID, die from
anything.
From just being a maniac. Yeah. Like general, Jimi Hendrix style death. Yeah. You know what I mean? Like, so, like, I think I was partying at a high level. I was really enveloped in my life in New York where I was going out to bars 4 or 5 nights a week.
It's probably expensive, too.
It was expensive as shit. It was killing me.
I don't even know how you could afford to live there and go out and drink. How could you do that?
You gotta be like me, baby.
You live by yourself.
Yeah. I'm a jack of many trades.
Yeah, I think I've asked him this before. I'm like, how the fuck do you afford to be a stand-up comedian in New York City? That's insane. And you said that you have like a pretty decent day job. You work with like computer programming. What is that?
Yeah, I have a regular job. That's the secret.
But it must be a good job if you
it's
can
a
afford.
Fine job. It's like, I don't like. All right. Well,
how did you do that job? Sorry to interrupt you.
No.
How did you? I'm getting like ADD. How did you do that job while partying? Because it sounds like a serious job.
It's any corporate job. The expectation is that you'll party. Like everybody parties. That's how you talk to customers. That you go out to huge dinners. It's like part of the life.
Interesting. Okay, so it actually worked itself out.
You can be extremely high functioning. Like at work, not where I currently work, but at work in my life. Like I spent 10 years in publishing, like book publishing, right?
No way.
Yeah. So that's like the bulk of where my career was.
Okay.
And then over time I had done stand up at night or like when I could.
Okay.
And in those types of industries, like partying is like going out with like coworkers or like going out after work for happy hour or like, that was like all built into the life. So it was actually pretty manageable. It never, and like I wouldn't like, I don't describe myself as like an out of control person. I always had my shit together, but I partied like a maniac, I was like high level. That's how I would describe it.
I would say even to be a stand-up, there's probably a decent amount of partying that goes on.
There is, but people are kind of like,
but there's also a lot of
different now.
There's also a lot of like, is this a leg again? There's also a lot of recovering alcoholics.
Yeah,
in
I'm friends with
comedy.
all like non-drinkers.
So you're probably going to get a lot of drinkers in comedy, but you're also going to get a lot of people who are like, I can't drink anymore. So it's not like you're by yourself. Like there's going to be other people.
There's a whole, and I surround myself with those types of people anyway.
Yeah.
With like people who are just serious about stand up and not serious about any other thing that gets in the way. Like my problem was, especially while I was drinking, was that my whole identity was drinking. So all my stand up was about, I got my stand up routine up in like from 2016, 17, 18 was like I was like 50 pounds heavier and I had a big beard and I would come on stage and be like, I've been getting fucked up. Like, the Chinese food restaurant's asking about me because I'm here. Normally I'm home eating. Like all my jokes were about partying. You know what I mean? Yeah. That was my whole identity. But it got in the way of being of pursuing stand up because I was always like a mess or like can only allocate like 20% of my time to thinking about it. So like when COVID hit, and then we all had to be in isolation, it helped me kind of see how much time I was wasting. That's basically what happened. And so I was like, I'm not going to drink anymore because it's taking up like 65% of my life and I feel like horrible and I look like shit and it's my whole personality. And then once I started to undo that as my whole personality, I kind of found myself again. And when I re-entered stand-up, I was like, okay, now I have nothing to do besides work my day job from 9 to 5 and then go out till 2 a.m. and do stand-up. And I can because there's so much of it, because the city's opened up like a flower after the virus, and I had spent the whole year writing that we were off, and
How
so I was reinventing myself.
Sorry to interrupt you. How would you say your material has changed now that because you were saying before how a lot of your identity was wrapped up in this partying, and a lot of that came through in your stand-up. How would you say your material has changed now? So where do you draw inspiration from now that this isn't your identity? Like, what is the new?
I'm still
trying to figure
I think
that out.
I'm still working it out. Like, it's been it was like weird because like I had this like crutch of this idea of like when I went on stage I would just make these jokes about what a loser I am, and like it seemed to work, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
But then over time you like if you quit drinking and you lose a bunch of weight and start running, and then you don't feel like a loser anymore. And then it's like, okay, well, this isn't my identity. But you still want to be a little self-deprecating so that you're able to be vulnerable to an audience so they connect with you. You know what I mean? Nobody likes a person that comes on stage like, yeah, I have no problems. I don't even know why I'm doing stand-up. You know what I mean? I hate that person. But I don't know. I think now I've just been focused on like all my jokes are through storytelling. So I accept that I'm never going to be like, all right, so like this guy walks into a bar and then this guy comes in, I'm just not that kind of stand-up.
You're not like a classic joke teller.
No, and I might never be. Like, I might never be like a great, like I say this in like, in the most truthful way possible. Like I may never be like a great stand-up comedian. Like I may never be like Mark Normand or somebody like that. Mm-hmm. But my journey to finding myself creatively, I believe is through storytelling. And as it relates to what I'm doing right now, it's through the muse of stand-up.
There is a lot of different types of comedians and different styles in their comedy. There is the classic joke teller. And again, I feel like everybody on my podcast is like, can you stop talking about Mark Normand? I have like the biggest crush and like, I just love
Me too.
him. But he's such a, I would say he's a classic joke teller.
Right. And writer.
He's a classic writer. But there are storytellers. I love Miss Pat. She's a storyteller.
Yeah.
And I just discovered a whole new genre of comedy that I didn't even know was a genre of comedy. One of my friends showed it to me. There are some comedians who purposely bomb on stage because they no, seriously, it's a thing, and I didn't even know this, but there's comedians who purposely bomb on stage to play with the energy of making the room uncomfortable, and they actually do whole skits where they're purposely being a bad comedian, and it's a whole thing. I didn't even know it was a thing. I'm like, what the fuck? Like,
what that makes me think of is
Andy Kaufman. He showed me.
Like,
that's what it was.
Like Andy Kaufman, because he would just like go on stage for like a theater full of people and like read the Great Gatsby till everybody left the room, or like, you know what I mean? Or
I
like,
find that so interesting.
He's my favorite comedian, so it's funny that you bring.
Is it really?
Sort like it's like, well, because like I consider myself a storytelling comic, so like my biggest influencers are like Jim Carrey and Robin Williams and those types of people when I was growing up. Yeah, like I like big crazy characters and stuff. But
you do embody like I've seen him obviously because I do his show. I've seen him perform, and you have some loud voices that you do.
Yeah. I love like story. They're just people that I know, right? So it's like people, like a lot of people times like other comics, like all your voices sound the same and stuff like that. It's like they all sound like people in Old Bridge, New Jersey. Like these are the people that I know. So
the comedian last week, not to like put you on the spot, but the comedian not last week, the last time I went, he was like, "Why does your mom's voice and your dad's voice sound the same?"
Yeah, and I think, and I'll tell you about that, but I also want to talk about Andy Kaufman for a sec. But like, my voices don't sound this. They sound the same in that, like I'm not trying to do impressions. Like I'm not going on stage and be like, this is an impression of Obama. Like, wow, we got it. Yes, we can. Like that's not what I'm doing. It's not what I'm doing. I'm just relaying the world as I see it. And so these are the types of people. This is how the world sounds to me. You know what I mean? Like they're all New Yorkers and Staten Island people. And like, so that's what I think. It doesn't bother me when people say that though, because that's not what I'm trying to get across. You know what I mean? And what am I doing with stand up now? It's like, I'm really just reliving things that have happened to me in my life. And like a lot of these stories are true stories. And I'm trying to like refine myself in them and then find what's funny about it. And that kind of happens on stage. So I can like write down like, oh, like here's this story, here's this thing that I tell a story at parties and people think it's funny, but it's not until I get up on stage and start bombing it and stuff that I start to realize like where it's funny, like what matters about it, like how it comes alive. So that's like kind of, it's been weird going through these like stories from my life and then seeing them get funny and come alive on stage, because it's part of it's like an unflowering, it's like an unfolding of me as a person. So I'm like going through it as post-COVID, post-isolation, like it's all happening at the same time. And that's sorry.
No, it's okay. I have so many questions for you, and I don't even know which one to follow.
But the very last thing is Andy Kaufman was one of my favorite comics because Jim Carrey was one of my favorite comics, and he made that great movie called Man on the Moon about Andy Kaufman when I was a kid, and I used to watch that movie obsessively, and I became obsessed with Andy Kaufman for a little while.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow, that's really interesting that I brought that up because that was the first time I'd ever seen Andy Kaufman, and I was like, this guy's crazy. I've never seen anybody do stuff like this before. So it's interesting that you were so influenced.
They're not even
him.
sure if he's dead. You know, like he died.
Yeah, my friend told me that too. They said he fucked with people so much that when he died, they thought he
was part of the act.
It was part of
and that he would show up like 40 years later. People still believe it. And
imagine he'll come back.
Imagine you were that good at what you do that people believe that. You know what I mean? Like that people couldn't accept the reality of your death.
Freaky as shit.
Yeah.
That'd be freaky as shit if he actually came back.
That's what made him. I mean, he's a pioneer for people like Tim and Eric and, you know, Mr. Show and all that kind of crazy stuff. Like if you talk about the sensation of bombing on stage, to me, it's more just like some comics make people feel uncomfortable and really get their jollies in that space.
I had at an open mic. I was telling my friend this too. At an open mic in New Jersey, there's this one comic who goes up every single week, and I'm sorry if he finds this, but he won't.
In New Jersey?
In New Jersey, yeah. He goes up every single week, and for his 5-minute slot at the open mic, he doesn't say anything for the whole. And he
I know that guy.
You do?
Well, I know a guy in New York that has the same act as.
It might be the same guy. It's either someone and it's strange, but it's such an interesting moment to be in because the audience's reaction usually starts with like, first it starts with like everyone's looking at each other like, is this guy okay? And then at some point with it's the longest 5 minutes of your life.
Yeah.
And he does it every week, which is weird. And in that 5 minutes, at some point, someone in the audience starts telling jokes because people can't handle the silence for too long.
They can't handle the space.
And I'm just like, either this guy is a fucking lunatic or he's a genius. Like whatever, the guy who goes up every week, I can't figure it out.
I'm biased to say he's a lunatic, but like, you know, and I'm sorry. I know people that do that in New York that do nothing and like, that's fine. That's cool. Like, hey,
it's interesting.
It's interesting to say the least. You paid $5. You're here. You have nothing to say. Let people absorb the tension. What's that musical number? It's like
I was just gonna say there was a musician who did the same exact thing. Johnny Cage, the silent song. He was experimental and he was very philosophical about music and trying new things. And he actually did. I don't know if he was the pioneer of atonal music or one of the people who made atonal music so popular, but he really liked to play around with different ideas, kind of like we were talking about these comedians who are doing the same thing. And he got like a whole show together, and he just played nothing for about an hour.
That's a sick concert,
and
though.
people I've heard of artists doing the same thing, actual like sculptors and stuff. I heard about this one sculptor who dug a hole, like he got paid. I don't remember which artist it was, but I read about it in an art class in college.
Wow.
He got paid about 10 grand, something ridiculous like that. Mm-hmm. Don't quote me on it, but it was something like 10 grand.
Yeah.
To dig a giant hole in the ground.
Nice.
And that's what he did. And then he put the dirt back in the hole.
That's how I have my apartment in New York City. I have that same job. You dig a hole, and then you put I was given a grant by the MoMA to do that. People do that stuff. I mean,
it's like this experimental.
But people have done it. So when you do it for stand up, I don't think it's that interesting.
Yeah.
And honestly, I'll tell this quick story. I'm just gonna tell this story. It doesn't matter if you're watching. I'm sorry. I don't mean to be a dick.
He's a storyteller. Do it.
This is just. I was at a long time ago when I came back to the New York comedy scene, which was 2018. Yeah. I've lived in San Francisco from 2014 to 2018.
Oh, no way.
Yeah. So then I came back, and I didn't really know anybody in the scene anymore because I had been gone for a few years. And there was a guy who I was talking to out front of an open mic, and he was like, "What are you gonna do up there?" And I was telling him about my bits, and I was like, "What?" He was like giving me advice. He's like, like sometimes an audience does this and they do that. And he's like, you got to be able to read, whatever. He gives me this comedy advice. So I was like, all right, thanks, man. And then we go down in the mic. And then he stood there and said nothing for his entire 5 minutes. I was like, this guy just gave me advice. That's how I felt about it. You know what I mean? But like, I'm not saying it wasn't art or interesting, as you put it. It's just
I wouldn't.
Not my bag, man.
When I say it was interesting, I'm not saying I would pay to see it.
Right.
I'm just saying being there and experiencing it was interesting.
Yeah,
it was really interesting to see what progressed in the 5 minutes. It was
what did you go through? Did you feel
discomfort? A lot of discomfort, pain. Like
you felt pain?
I felt I'm very empathetic. I feel like I feel like if someone else in the room is uncomfortable, I feel uncomfortable. So just feeling everybody around me not know what to do made me feel bad for everyone.
Right.
So I felt uncomfortable.
You felt bad for everyone.
I felt bad for everyone
How do you think he felt?
He loved it.
Yeah, he felt good about it.
He felt, and here's the thing.
Now they feel like me.
Here's the thing that he does too. When he doesn't just do nothing. He always makes it look like he's going to say something.
Right. Oh, he's like, here it comes. Yeah, that's cool.
Shit's fucking weird. He is a lunatic.
Jersey.
Jersey. These Jersey folks.
Well, yeah, I mean, it's interesting to me that the quality and the types of people that do all kinds of crazy acts. Yeah. You know what I mean? Like stuff that's what's so great about open mics though. Because there are things like I'm just personally not a fan of the Zero Silence act.
Yeah.
It's just not my particular thing. I get it though.
Yeah.
But there's some people that do stuff that, you know, I think ostensibly people won't pay to see. You know what I mean? But I still think it's really.
What's one of the weirdest acts you've ever seen in New York on an open mic?
I mean, there's no show. I've seen people take showers on, dump a bucket of water on stage. I've seen people. I've seen the silent act many times. I've seen people wear crazy costumes, and I remember one kid used to wear these Grinch hands and do all of his jokes about the Grinch hands. You've seen it. There's so much stuff like that. So much stuff like that.
I think that's the one thing about open mics. A lot of my friends and family are like, "Is that inappropriate?" Yeah, that's an appropriate way to use like. Okay.
I thought that was a sound.
Was that a sound filler?
No, a sound way to use the word.
That
like.
was
Take it from me.
A lot of my family and friends are like, yeah, that's an appropriate way to use the word like.
We agree. We're good. We're aligned grammatically.
Yeah, what else would I say?
No.
A lot of my friends and family are such. There's no better word than like in that situation.
And listen, you can say like all the time.
I don't want to.
It doesn't matter.
I wish I had a shock collar and that somebody was in the corner shocking me every time.
It's okay. It's okay to say like. You gotta give yourself a break.
Not as many times as I said it in the last episode. It wasn't okay. It really wasn't. But a lot of my friends and family were like, how do you have the bravery to get up there and do stand up at an open mic? You're so brave, etc.
Mm-hmm.
When you see the crazy acts that people do up there, you realize it's really not that hard to get up and do it. It's like, even if
you're a nut too for doing it.
Exactly.
You're not better than the guy taking a shower on stage.
Exactly. Yeah. And so many people, bombing is part of the process of getting better.
Right.
So then the idea of bombing, while bombing isn't enjoyable, it becomes a normal part of the process.
Yes.
To expect it. So it doesn't feel that scary after that. It does feel scary to do shows sometimes. I don't know how you feel about that. Do you get anxiety when you're about to do a show?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Big time. Like, I stopped bugging out about mics over time, which I'm grateful for. Like there was a time a couple years back when I would bomb at an open mic
and cry.
And like, yeah, not cry. I never cry. But yeah, I would cry and then I would drink myself to death and I wouldn't do stand up. But most importantly, I wouldn't do stand up again for months.
Really?
So that was like the problem with when I got started was like I would do stand up. And I would write, and then I would bomb, and then I would be like, I'm not funny.
How long have you been doing stand-up?
Since 2016. On and off, intermittently, with like bombing and then not doing it again.
Wow.
And then once I started doing it seriously, and when I say what I mean by serious is that I do it every day now, as much as I can.
Has that only been since 2020?
It was like before the pandemic.
Okay.
Post-pandemic, meaning when New York reopened so you could do comedy again. I've been going really hard since then because now I have nothing.
Do a day?
I try to do 3 or 4 a day.
That's the thing with New York, by the way, listeners, because they're on my journey with me right now trying to figure out what city to move to because I want to move to a city so I have more exposure to this type of stuff. And I get all kinds of things. People are like, go to Austin, go to New York, go to Philly, go to LA. That's the one thing about New York is that you can... I don't know if all these other cities provide this, but in New York City, you can do, if you didn't have a job, you could do like 20 mics a day. if you didn't have a job.
And even if you do have a job, you can still, like, if you're willing to stay up late, you can just keep doing mics all night.
Yeah. Yeah, if you're living in New York City, you obviously have a job,
Yeah.
or else you wouldn't be able to live there. But like you said, even if you have a job, no matter what your hours are, in New York City, there's morning mics. They have mics at like 10, 12 o'clock, and then they have late mics. So that is one of the perks about New York City. It's really fucking expensive to live there, but there's some reasons for that, you know?
Yeah, you can, it's all about, like, a friend of mine, comic friend of mine, Jared Schwartz, told me once when I first met him a couple years ago that he thought that a good amount of time was like an hour a week or an hour 15. So to think of it in terms of minutes.
Yeah.
So I thought that was actually pretty good advice. Give the kids some credit. And I would try to hit, like, at first, I think, like, did I do an hour of stand up a week?
Yeah.
And then that's what I mean by when I say, like, I got, like, serious. I was like, just like, that was all I was doing was focusing on, like, if I was hitting that
Actual hitting time.
Yeah.
There is something, I had a podcast guest who pointed this out to me, which I think is really valid. Doing time as a stand-up comedian it only will help you if you're doing productive things with the time. Because not saying that you do this, I'm just saying other people do this.
Well, you mean I can't sit there and say nothing and that's not good? That's what I do as my act.
Not that guy, but for example, some people will say, I did 3 mics, but every time they do a mic, they didn't have any type of attainable goal, and they might tell the same joke the same exact time each time. So I think it's more than just doing the mics. I think it's doing the hour a week, but also each day, like whatever your routine is in the morning and night, actually sitting there and reflecting what went wrong, recording your sets and that type of stuff. Do you have a routine like that where you have like sit down time? Where you listen to your recordings or rewrite your jokes, you know?
Yeah. Oh yeah. Big time. Retro, I would call that in my head. Like looking at it afterward is the most important thing. Like, I don't know. Like I said, like I'm not an expert at stand up. Like, you know what I mean? I'm not even like I'm not a pro, you know, but like my thought is that, you should have, I usually have broad goals. So, and I think of it in terms of 2-week rotations. This is just my personal thing. So to break it down for you, like every 2 weeks I try to come up with a new bit, right? And I'll do the new bit at mics. Like I'll write like a zillion jokes one weekend and they all suck. They all bomb. But like I'll one thing of like, say you write 20 jokes and then you try them all in the beginning of the week, like one thing will kind of start to get a laugh. Mm-hmm. That thing I'll then spend 2 weeks trying to turn it into a full-blown bit, like a full-blown joke. And then if I find that it's starting to laugh, like I have a system of mics where I'm like, I'll do it at these mics, and then if it starts working at these mics, I'll go to these other mics where I think it's a bit more high stakes, higher standards. Then I'll do those mics, and then if it's working there, our Village Idiot show, which the only reason the show exists is so that me and my partner Isaac can practice our stand-up for a real audience every couple weeks. I'll debut the joke there. Sometimes after all these mics, it will bomb there, and then I go back to square one. But my whole thing is, though, sometimes I'm not working out new bits. Sometimes I will say the same jokes over and over again because I think that that there's something, like, at least for me, there's something really special about, like, for example, I've been saying this one joke for over a year about Trader Joe's, right? I say it at every single one of my sets. But like recently, I just started saying it in a different voice, and it's getting way bigger laughs. And that's like a year later. So like, there's a lot of value in continuing to say things, even though you don't know why. And I think of it like, you know, they call it reps in the stand-up. Yeah. It's like, it doesn't matter if you get up there and kind of like, sometimes I'll get up there and just make fun of someone I didn't like at the mic the whole time.
That's true.
That just getting up there helps me feel like you, like, because I'm always trying to like not feel that anxiety of being on stage in the first place. It's a mixture of things.
It's a mix. Yeah, that other guy said like you have to have a very serious attainable goal each time, but that's true. I didn't really consider that sometimes it's just playing with that space and that feeling that you get up there that could help you in some kind of way. That's
the joy, man.
Yeah, because in those moments you really don't know what's going to happen. If you get a heckler, do you get a lot of hecklers?
No one's at our show. If people are drunk and stuff, I guess people will be talking, and that can be like hecklers. Yeah. Like our show is infamous for having people like half the bar talk during it.
Yeah.
So that's part of it. But I think the real growth happens when you have like, and this doesn't happen all the time, especially for someone at my level, but you get like a sick show and everybody's engaged. Like they're excited. They're going to go out. They're going to see stand up.
Yeah.
I love that. Like I don't get as many shows like that as I would like, you know, and like you do that show and then you're doing your material and you're calm because everybody's with you and they're engaged and they're laughing, and then in that space, that's when I feel free to like be like, what else? Things just pop into your head. You're like, what else can I do?
Juke Bar does have that space sometimes. It depends on the night. There was one night where the one half of the bar, the one that's sitting closer to the bar, they were all talking, but then everybody in the room was listening. But then sometimes the whole place is listening. It really just depends.
And you see sort of what makes a comic fabulous and some others like not, like through that. Like I've said to many people when I've come off stage, like I was unable to control every single person in this room. Like I sometimes can't get half the bar to pay attention because like that's the nature of the show. Like they let the bar be like a place where people talk. Yeah. But someone like Mark Normand, like when he, not to keep bringing him up, but but when he was there, it's just something you note that you can hear a pin drop. And it's not just, nobody knows who he is besides us. Like he's a famous comedian, but like most people that go to the show don't know who he is.
We were just talking about this on the last episode, that amongst the comedians, everyone knows who he is and his skill level. Yeah. But amongst, if I asked my dad or my aunt, they won't know. He's not famous on that level. Well,
but I think I know that guy.
He has serious skill.
Well, he'll silence a whole room because as soon as he gets up and starts talking, you're watching somebody fantastic at what they do. Yeah. Like at our show our holiday show, he was not a single person was speaking during his set. You know what I mean? And like that's what I mean by like that's like the power that you have when you're great at it. It's
crazy.
Yeah. But in terms of retroing stuff, just a quick note, I do listen back to every single thing that I record, and I only recently started doing this in the past few months, but I star every time I get a laugh. And then when you see a big gap where there were no laughs, I'll be like, what am I saying here? That's not funny at all.
When you're trying out a new joke, because I know every comic perceives this differently. When you're deciding, okay, this one gets a reaction, does it have to be, I just heard one person laugh, so I know there's something special here?
Sometimes.
Or does it have to be a decent amount of people were laughing and something was special here? Or is it like, no, I just got one laugh and that was it enough to tell me that this is something to work on,
Yeah. It's like, at least for me, like I said, I can only speak to my own experience. I don't know these things as like answers. You know what I mean?
Of course.
Yeah, I'm just...
By the way,
just a disclaimer.
This is a podcast. Everything here is... an exploration of ideas in the mind. Nothing here is law. Nothing here is the Bible. That's There's what laws. That's why I like podcasting. I think that's what podcasting is. I think podcasting is just exploring ideas. We're idiots. Yeah. Okay? We're total idiots. We don't know what we're talking about.
We're just two people from New Jersey, from Old Bridge.
From Jersey.
Yeah, we don't know anything.
He is from Jersey, but I think of him as a New Yorker.
All right. Well, what was you asked me a question. Sorry, about.
Oh, okay. So when you're trying out a joke. How much of a reaction do you have to get for you to say this is a seed? All
right. So you know who the comic Chris Brown is? Not the musical artist. He's a New York City comedian named Chris Brown.
It's such a common sounding name that I would have to see his face to really...
He's a really good looking guy.
Okay.
Anyway, shout out to Chris Brown. But anyway, he told me a while back, and like it's good advice. Like I've listened to it over and over again in my head. Like... It's all, like I know I mentioned this earlier, but it's all about the nuggets. Like he called it nuggets of laughs, where you're saying something, and an open mic, nobody laughs anyway. Everybody hates each other. Like they don't hate each other. We're all friends and family. I mean, I consider some of these people my family. But like you've seen everybody's bits a bazillion. You're just there. Like let's do it.
Some people are there just smoking weed.
Let's do this. We're here to do this, right? Yeah. But like, and it's so by its very nature, it's hard to get like a really serious, genuine bunch of laughs at an open mic. Yeah. But if there's, you feel like it's like that connection with, it doesn't have to be everybody. Yeah. Like it could be like one or two people, but like you play music, right? I always reference music with this because that's to me how it's the most tangible. You know, when you're playing music and maybe you're improvising, you're with a band, and suddenly you're all kind of smiling and you're glancing at each other and you're working as one squishy entity.
You just feel it, yeah.
You're no longer like your collective mind. Your individual decisions no longer really matter. Like the group is thinking.
Okay, yeah,
you know what I mean?
I understand.
Like it's jazz. You're locked in.
Yeah.
Like I feel that you can achieve that same symbiosis with stand-up. And that with audience, that's what real stand up is like when you feel like you're not thinking anymore, like what's my next punchline going to be? It's like you and the audience are one and you're feeding off of each other. And sometimes I'll say something that not everybody laughed, but I felt that with like a couple people for 3 seconds, like a light that went out, you know? And then I'll listen back to it and be like, there's a nugget of something there. And then that's what I'll try to turn into a bigger snowball, which then can become an avalanche of something really funny if you keep building momentum on it.
It's funny. There's a joke that I tried at a couple mics that didn't get a laugh at all. But I wanted to keep trying it because I liked it. It was a very dark... I'm not going to say what the joke is because I think it's weird to talk about that stuff. But right. I'll say it's about suicide. I told a very dark joke about suicide.
Sounds really funny.
It's one of those jokes that people look at me when I say it and they're like, is she okay?
Yeah.
You know, it's one of those things. But I think it's really funny.
Yeah.
And I tried it at 2 open mics and no one laughed. And I was like, I'm going to try it one more time. I tried it at a show. One guy in the audience fucking lost his shit.
Nice.
I don't think I've had jokes that more people laughed collectively, but I don't think I've ever heard one person laugh that loud. And I'm like, that's my fucking audience. Like whoever that guy is,
I found it.
And then after the show was over, he came up to me. He goes, I thought that same exact thing you said about suicide. So it is like there's a nugget. I somehow had that connection with that guy. You know what I mean? So it's interesting. It's a dark joke. It won't work everywhere, but I just got to find my depressed depressed audience.
Like what you were describing though is the same thing that I'm describing. It's like you know, you both felt it.
Yeah.
The comedian labels it.
Yeah.
You know, like sometimes really good stand-ups will like when I watch, like, you know, like something will happen like in the room or like that will make everybody kind of feel uncomfortable. Maybe another comic will say something that, like, you know, I don't know, or like someone talks, something happened where the feeling changes in the room.
Yeah.
A really good comic will, without like insulting or like, will just label what that thing was and then unblock it from the tension in the air. So it's like a really, like what you're saying, if you're labeling something, even if it's about suicide and someone else like have had that thought and like never thought how to label it or describe it, then they connect it to you.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I think that's part of it too, is like you come out and you're like, that thing that you feel, here's what it is. Yeah. You know, and like they're like, that is what it is.
That's what comedy is essentially. It's people being I'm pausing because I'm trying not to say like. People being like,
don't say
I don't
it.
know what to say. I don't really know what else to say there, but it's the audience being like, and having that connection with you and saying, I've thought that too.
Yeah.
I'm not crazy.
No.
You think it too? Oh my God. Haha.
That's what life
we're
is
okay.
like.
You know, we're all right.
We should all kill ourselves. What are we doing here? We should like kill ourselves.
We should like.
What are we even doing? Yeah.
I'm being self-critical about the likes, but then I listen to Nikki Glazer's stand-up. She uses a lot of likes, and that made me feel better because I like her.
We all like her, and
I love her.
She seems to be doing fine with the likes.
Yeah,
you know. And all right, I'll tell you this: I took a class when I was in college. It was a public speaking class, and he made us listen back to back in those days, because I went to college so long ago. We got like a weird disc, like a small CD looking thing, and we had to we had to play it back. It was like an MP3 thing. We had to play it back on that. None of that was relevant to the story, but we had to write down every time we said like, and I remember I've been through this.
Did you use any ums?
Oh yeah. I'm a big guy.
I don't think I hear you say or like a lot.
I've worked on it over the years.
I think you say them, but not a lot. Not to a point where it's distracting.
Thank you. I appreciate that. I've been working on it my whole life, so I'm glad that we finally got here. Now the thing, for sure, you know, because like I said, I worked for a book publisher for a long time. I used to have to do a lot of presentations. People would say, "You saying all the time? It's distracting."
I think that's what it is. It's understandable to use these. I think people use the words and like because I think they're uncomfortable with silence. I think that's what it is. I speak really fast and I'm uncomfortable. Speaking of the awkward silences, I'm very uncomfortable during awkward silences, and I always feel like I have to say something. So I'm just like, because I'm like, I can't deal with this pause. This is uncomfortable.
Yeah.
So I think part of becoming a better public speaker is just being comfortable with saying, wait a second, that pause is actually it's actually a moment for the audience to breathe. It's a moment for the people to breathe with you and take a second to follow what you're saying. It's actually healthy, and it's probably weird to listen back to someone who's like blah blah blah, like nonstop, you know.
Well, as a New Jersey person, that's a huge problem. You know, we talk faster than everybody else, and when I sometimes the feedback is just slow down, and then you won't do that. Because I remember being in when I lived down in California, I would talk to people and people would just stare at me and be like, I can't follow anything you're saying. I don't know what you're talking about. You're too fast. And I would have to slow it down.
It's not like they speak a different language.
No, you're just too fast. Like we talk so fast. Like if I call my mother, I'm like, what'd you do over the weekend? Oh, you did that? Oh, so did I. Oh, he's a stupid ass. Oh, no, I'll see you. Like that's how we're fast. But like in other places, I'd be like, I'd walk into a coffee shop in like Northern California somewhere and be like, yeah, I'd like to get a cup of coffee. Can you give me a cup of coffee with half and half? They'd be like, I really don't understand what you're saying. You're nobody to me.
My ex-boyfriend, I always shout out my ex-boyfriend Robbie. Shout out to Robbie. He
Old Bridge High School 2011.
No,
all right.
Not that boyfriend.
Okay.
That's a different boyfriend.
Gotcha.
That one's Ryan. Shout out to Ryan. But Robbie
and all the boys down in detention club.
No, when me and Robbie dated, a big point of tension in our relationship was that we couldn't relate to each other conversationally because he takes a lot of pauses. He's very quiet. He's a brilliant guy. He's very smart, but we just communicate so differently that we couldn't see eye to eye when we were trying to communicate with each other. I talk a mile a fucking minute. I'm like blah blah blah. Like I used to joke with him that I probably speak 80% of the more. I probably speak 90% of the time, and this was our conversations. It would be like, "This is me," and he'd be like, "Boop," like that.
Yeah,
that was our conversations back and forth with each other.
He was like, "Man, we really connected back there."
And then. I mean, it just happened the other day. I sent him this really long text message around Thanksgiving.
You're a multi-paragraph texter?
Yeah, I texted him a huge paragraph thanking him for everything. Thanksgiving, I want to say thank you for XYZ. And he just responds, thanks, I appreciate you too. But one day, he met one of my uncles. We ran into one of my uncles, and my uncle was talking a mile a fucking minute, and he was like, holy shit. He was like, that's why you think talking that fast is normal.
See,
like,
it's the way you grew up.
He's like, that's not normal, Andrea. People, that was probably the most he ever talked. He's like, that's not normal. People don't speak like that in my family. We don't just talk constantly.
Where's his family from? Utah? Because
no, they're from New Jersey also.
Well, they must be from South Jersey, Robbinsville.
I'm an Italian Jerseyan,
right.
Okay? So
Same,
we're
sort of.
loud, obnoxious. I mean, my stepmom and my dad, when they got married, my stepmom would have complaints about the same thing with my dad, that my whole family was just rowdy and obnoxious, and like they just couldn't see eye to eye. You know what I mean?
Sure, of course.
About a lot of different things. It's just, but yeah, I'm like kind of going on a tangent now.
Well, I mean, I relate. Imagine, like my mom is a Catholic Italian lady.
Okay.
Big sauce stirring lady, nut job, and she talks really fast, and she's as you said, like boisterous or whatever. And my dad is like a soft spoken kind of Jewish guy.
Interesting. So we were talking about this before in the car too. He's half Jewish.
I'm half Jewish.
You're
I'm
half.
Yeah, I guess Jewish because
the Jewish one is the quiet one.
My dad's quiet. Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah.
I always thought, because I do know Jews and Italians tend to get along.
That's right. They get married sometimes too.
I feel like I always end up like having crushes on like Jewish celebrities or Jewish guys. Like that's kind of my thing, because I feel like the Jews and the Italians just get each other.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? They speak. So I find that interesting that your father isn't loud and obnoxious.
As a Jew, you find that impossible to. You're like, no, yeah. I mean, he's
probably neurotic though, right?
No, he's not.
No?
He's a pretty mellow guy.
He's normal.
He's a pretty regular guy.
According to your stand-up, he plays card games.
Yeah, he's a gambler. He's a rambling man. They're not like normal. They're not like everyday. Like my dad's not an everyday guy. He plays Texas Hold'em religiously.
Interesting. Where did your parents meet?
They met in a grocery store in Queens in like 1970 something.
I think that might have been one of your stand-up. I don't want to give your
I've never talked
away.
about this before.
Somebody did.
With anybody except all of you.
I think there was a stand-up bit I saw recently where somebody was talking about how it's not like the old days where you met in a grocery store. So
Really?
I might have mixed that up with you.
They worked at a grocery store in Douglaston, Queens, and that's where they met, in the grocery store.
Get the fuck out of here. That's wild.
Yeah, I know.
So
I was meant to be.
You
because like these two opposing families, you know what I mean? It's like Shakespearean.
Interesting.
Because they hated each other in those days, the Italians and the Jews.
Wow.
They didn't hate each other. I take that back. They didn't want their kids marrying each other.
Yeah.
So my parents' wedding was contentious. Apparently, I wasn't there, but yeah.
That's wild.
Yeah.
I'm like fascinated with that because I always thought I didn't realize that the Jews and the Italians had such tension back then.
I don't think it was like it was just like it wasn't Jews or Italians. I just think like the Jews, at least I'm just speaking on things that I have no relationship to because I wasn't there. But as I understand it, they wanted to just stay with your own. You know, like that's what it was like. It didn't matter if it was Jew or Italian or Irish or whatever.
Dude, you know? racism amongst different whites exists. I saw my grandmother the other day. She's 94, and she. Oh my God, my poor grandma! I'm gonna shout her out. She goes to me She goes, "Don't ever marry a damn fucking Irishman."
Yeah, of course she said that. That's what I'm talking about. Italian. My grandfather hated Irish
she's
people.
actually Ukrainian, so I'm not 100% Italian.
Gotcha.
But I feel like I am just because my last name is so Italian, Pranzatelli.
Yeah.
And I feel like I have more Italian-looking features.
Right.
And,
I would have thought you were 100%.
A lot of people
based
think
on
that.
The name.
But no, my grandmother's Ukrainian, and she hates Irish people so much for some reason.
Well, she won't like the Village Idiot comedy show at the Juke Bar. I'll tell you that much. No, they do. Like my grandfather used to be like, "Oh yeah, Irish people," you know. But that's just
why
how it was.
Why don't they like the Irish?
It all has to do with like Depression era, like inter-community issues, you know, around like policing and availability of resources and jobs and unions. I don't know much about it. I'm glad at least we're not there anymore. You know what I mean? We all kind of like get along, like Irish and Italian, Jews. I feel like for the most part, at least in my small world.
I do feel like I don't know if we're allowed to talk about this. I don't know what's appropriate to talk about. I do feel like a lot of Irish people. I was going to say gyrish. Like
gyrish people.
I do feel like a lot of Irish people that I know were cranky.
You hate Irish people?
I hate.
Is that what you're saying?
No, like a lot, kind of.
We're not allowed to talk about it. We aren't allowed to talk about that.
Dirty.
Yeah,
I do. Now that I really think about it, a lot of people that I know, a lot of men that I've talked to that had Irish origin were fucking cranky.
Okay. I know a lot of Italian people with Italian origin that were pretty cranky too. And a lot of Jews that were pretty cranky.
People are just fucking assholes.
I think people are just genuinely cranky. You know what I mean? So that's what I have to say about that.
How do you feel like because I said I'm Italian and I feel Italian, even though I'm also partly Ukrainian. Do you feel Italian or Jewish?
I feel Italian.
Your name is very Jewish though.
Yes. Well, I identify with Jewish stuff, like culturally when I meet other Jews, like Isaac, who's my comedy quote unquote partner, you know?
Shout out to Isaac.
Like I feel like a sense of community with which I relate to them.
There's a lot of Jews in comedy.
Yeah, and I feel like some sort of connection with Jewish people for sure.
Spiritual.
A deeper understanding.
Are you religious practicing?
No, I'm not religious. My parents are atheists.
You're atheist, right?
I don't know. I guess I consider myself a spiritual person actually. I don't believe in I don't follow the Bible,
no,
you know. But I would consider myself a spiritual person. Sort of in some way, and I feel a connection with Jewish people, but I identify sort of as an Italian person because I was raised that way.
I feel exactly the same, and I'm not Jewish. I feel Italian, but I have a connection with Jewish people. I really do. I even had a female podcast guest. Shout out to Caitlin, and I felt such a strong connection with her. And I'm like, there's something about this chick. And she's like, I'm Jewish. I'm like, oh, no wonder. I'm like,
maybe that's what it is. You should take a DNA test. Maybe you'll be.
I think she took a DNA test and found out she was. Maybe I'm Jewish.
Yeah.
Let's find out.
That's That's the telltale sign that you're Jewish. You start feeling Jewish.
Yeah. I just feel like I have the neuroticism. But I don't know. Italians are
the crankiness.
The crankiness, the neuroticism. I mean, Italians are fucking.
Yeah, Italians are the most neurotic nut job people on the planet.
That's what it is. Yeah. Yeah,
like my mother is, and there's no one more neurotic than her, and her mother before her, and her mother before that.
I have OCD. I have actual. I've never been clinically. No, actually, I have. I've been clinically diagnosed, but not with the type of OCD. There's different types of OCD. I've been diagnosed with a different type of OCD, but I've never been diagnosed with this kind, and I think I have it. When I leave the house, I check everything multiple times, and then I drive away and come back and check again.
You do that?
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, that's to me, that's classic OCD.
Yeah.
That's OCD classic.
Like
right?
I have a routine where before I leave the house, I turn the heat I make sure I turn the heat off.
Turn it
I
off.
check the coffee pot and make sure it's unplugged. I make sure the oven's off, but I do all of it. I have some friends who actually count the amount of times they do it. Like I have my one friend, he's like, yeah, I do it 3 times. I don't count. I should count because then I wouldn't do it as much. I probably do it like 10 times. It's fucking insane.
That sounds like OCD. But I will say, though, I do think part of this has to do with being Italian. So maybe you're more Italian than you think.
Yeah.
Because, like, my mom and like my grandparents that were all Italian, they were always like, make sure the iron's turned off.
Yeah.
Make sure it's off. Is it off? So like you have this thing in your brain when you leave. I'm like, it's on.
Yeah.
And then because I do that, I'm like,
yeah,
the house is burning down. Every time I leave, I'm like, it's burning
down. By the way,
down.
I admire your mic technique. I just noticed that he yelled in the mic and pulled it away.
I'm a professional,
He's a
Andrea.
fucking professional.
I'm a pro, baby.
But are you pro enough? You are, because you run a show. But I was going to ask if you're pro enough to know how to adjust a mic stand. Because I was shocked with the amount of comedians that I've had here on this podcast. And I would make a joke and I'd be like, oh, thank God a comedian, you'll know how to adjust the mic stand. They're like, actually, I don't know how to. I'm like, how do you?
No. I can adjust any mic stand.
You do, yeah.
Yeah. Even these kind of mic stands, you know, the boom, I would call these.
Well, you're gifted. You were a musician.
I'm a gifted,
You're gifted.
Yeah. What I'm trying to tell you is I'm extremely talented and I can do everything from talk to adjust a mic stand.
He was a musician.
I was a musician. I played music for a long time.
Yeah.
I was in a great band when I was younger.
What was your instrument?
Guitar, and I sing.
You sing?
Yeah.
No way.
Yeah.
No wonder his show, because the show he runs, he likes live music, which again, I was literally we're like repeating some of the stuff I said before the podcast, but I want to repeat it because I want to tell you guys. His show where he combines live music and comedy, if every comedy club did that, I would seek that to be my career. I would say, and there are people who are full-time musicians doing that. Like you can see on TV certain shows,
like Jimmy Fallon
or even
late
Tony
shows.
Hinchcliffe's show.
Oh yeah.
What is that? What's it called? It's almost like one of those singing shows, but for comedians. Kill Tony.
Oh, I don't know that
Kill
one.
Tony.
So
there's a show called Kill Tony.
Oh.
And it's on YouTube. It's really good. It's like a live podcast where they it's what's that? I'm losing my mind right now. That famous singing show where people go up and sing, and if they suck, they make fun of them.
Yeah, you know, it's not America's Got Talent.
One of those.
It's the original one with Ruben Studdard.
Wait.
You know, and Kelly Clarkson.
Yeah,
that one?
One of those shows.
They're the main one.
American Idol.
Okay. Duh, why we can't remember? Remember this.
I always think Kill Tony is
Ruben
similar
Studdard.
to the. I think Kill Tony is basically like the American Idol of comedy type of thing. Where they have a comedian on. There's 3 judges, and they're usually Tony Hinchcliffe is the main one, and they bring on famous comedians up there. They had Joe Rogan on there. They had Tim Dillon on there.
Wow.
I think maybe Bill Burr has been there before.
Billy
and
Boy.
they give their advice to the comedian. A lot of the times they suck. It's basically an open mic. It's
right.
like a lot. It's a really cool, it's a fun show to watch. But anyways, I'm getting on a tangent with that.
I've never heard of it. That
That's
sounds good.
You got to watch that. That's the description of the show. But the whole point I was getting at is they have live music. And if more places did that, I would literally seek that as my professional career.
Jeez.
So I'm so glad you do it, because not that many people do it.
I'm glad it worked out, because there's not that many people that do it.
Maybe I should just start handing my business card out to comedy clubs and being like, hey, I'll do music for you.
Maybe you should. I mean, it's a thing. Like, we're not the only show I've been to where there's musicians playing. Yeah. Like, I won't say it's like an original idea, but what initially made ours, like, honestly, like, and I feel the same way about you. Like, but before you, like, me and Justin are tied together creatively.
Yeah.
So I know that he has like this, he is funny too, and he can kind of portray that through the music. Yeah. That's why you've been such a good fit too. I think.
Yay, thank you.
Yeah. So I mean, and then there's other, and like I said, I've been to shows where there's been like bands that play and stuff like. So it's like not like all right, original concept, but we're the only like bar show I think that does it right now.
That's an interesting concept, being funny with the music. So what? As an observer of that, what would you say makes certain musicians funnier with the show?
It's about timing.
Yeah.
It's about having like a rigid understanding of like, because most of what comedy is timing. It's not about what you say. It's like when you say it and how you say it.
Yeah.
When you pause, and I don't know, like there's just appropriate times like to be funny in that situation, and you have to be able to read the comedic timing to do that. You know, like I don't know, like I said, we tried out other people that like would like play during the wrong time, like not in the wrong time when like no, there's no cue for them to play something. You know what I mean? Like a lot. How many times do like comics will get up there and be like, I want to hear like a blues or like something, like give me something, and then you know what I mean? Like I don't know, you just have to be able to follow along. That's all. Like to
one
be
comic
connected.
I was with, he had me on the spot. He's just started singing, and I was like, fuck, I hope I can figure this out on the spot. And I did. It was, oh God, I can't remember which comic it was, but he was really good. And
it was Josh Adam Meyer.
Josh Adam, yeah. And he started, it's just the rhythm of the He started singing that, and I was just like, all right, let's go for it. You know what I mean? I don't know if you remember that.
I do. I remember it.
And then Maddie Smith had me doing something with her. I don't get a ton of people who ask me to do something, but every now and then I do get someone be like, hey, can you hit this note every time a joke like just like people ask the most random things. Every now and then, if I'm laughing, I'll accidentally hit my hand on the keyboard, and somehow that ends up being funny.
Well, who doesn't love an accidental sound?
And the comedian kind of like works with that, and they are like, oh, was that on purpose? Did I get a drum roll? And I'm like, no, it was an accident. I'm sorry.
Yeah, they like that. They like that kind of stuff.
Yeah,
they like to be like at our holiday show. Mark Norman, I'll just use him as an example because we talked to him about him so much on the show. Like,
so mad he's engaged.
Right, I don't newly engaged. Congrats. But he goes, what was I gonna? He got lost for a second. He's like, what was I gonna talk about? What was I gonna talk about? And he was like, oh yeah, gay people. And he pointed to Justin. He was like, your haircut reminded me. You know what I mean? And then Justin did something. I forget what he did, but he like played a chord or something that was in sync with Mark. Like, you know what I mean? Like, that's what I mean. It's just about timing.
Yeah.
But if he had done that arbitrarily during his set, like it would have been disrupted. You know what I mean? It's just. I
think the comedian has to kind of call for it.
Yeah, or allude to it, or like, but it also just demonstrates the musician's on the same page as the comic. And I think with all this creative stuff, it's all like synergy in the air. Like, you know what I mean?
Damn it! Even on that Tony Hinchcliffe show I was just talking about, Kill Tony, there was a time that happened exactly what you're talking about. There was a Beatles cover band on the show. Mm-hmm. And they kept trying to make jokes. Like, okay, for example, if somebody said the word diamond, they would just start playing Lucy in the Sky with Diamond. It was cute like the first one or two times, but then they just kept doing it to the point where it got fucking annoying.
Right.
It was like, all right, we get the fucking joke. Every time you hear a word of a Beatles song, you don't need to start playing the Beatles song in the middle of this guy's act. You know what I mean? Like, it was cute the first time, but then after
you don't want to overdo it.
They just over fucking did it. So I see what you're saying. Some people just kind of
gotta read it, man. You gotta feel it.
You gotta feel it. They didn't they couldn't feel that how fucking awkward that shit was after a while. I was like, all right.
Yeah, man. You know these people even in like there's nothing I like find more uncomfortable than someone has no awareness. Like someone that speaks and then makes everybody feel horrible, but they have no awareness of it. I have I empathize with those types. You know what I mean?
That's what I was saying before, that I'm the empathetic type, that when those silences happen, I feel bad for everybody else. I'm kind of like that in general. If somebody else is making an ass out of themselves, I feel the pain. I'm just like, does this guy not know like all these people are fucking uncomfortable?
No, they don't. If they knew, then they wouldn't do it.
I think that's a comedy gift, to be able to really feel the energy of the people around you. You know?
Yeah, and it's the most important thing, because like you have to align with them. Like I always say, like, and again, without really knowing what I'm talking about, just based on what I feel, that like when you go on stage, you have to feel everybody's energy, and then you have to like get on board with that energy, and then make them like you in the first like 8 seconds. Yeah. Not like you like they think you're funny, like just like you, like they want to be your friend, like they like you, and then you feel like you like them. If they decide in that first couple seconds that they don't like you, it doesn't really matter what you say anymore. You're done.
Do you think you can't earn their trust back?
Some really good comics can. I often can't. So like thankfully it hasn't been happening as much lately as things progress. But like if I go on stage and say something that I think is going to be funny off the top, like a riff, in the first 8 seconds, and everybody hates it, I have a lot of trouble.
Like, fuck.
I'm like, oh, everybody hates me now.
So do you kind of, just to start off, do you open with jokes that you know are gonna steal the audience's attention?
I try to, but then it's not always like like a template. You know, it doesn't always work.
Yeah.
Like that's what I mean. Like reading the energy is more important than the jokes.
Yeah. Like one of my friends in my band, a lot of shout outs today. Shout out to Matthew Kerner. I always
shout out Matthew
Kerner
and the boys in the detention club.
Every guy, the boys in the detention detention club. I said attention club.
Yeah.
Matthew, he plays in my band. He's the guitarist.
Nice.
I always tell him that he would be a good comedian because he's excellent at reading the room and picking the songs that the audience because we come in with a set list, and I'm very OCD. I'm very like, let's go by the set list. And he is a little more experimental with the crowd, and he's like, no, I think they want country. I'm like, fuck country.
Yeah,
and he's like,
fuck country.
He's like, no, like we got to try this one song, and he's always right. Like I'm always like, God damn it! Like we did Twist and Shout. Like we were doing all these amazing songs, but it just wasn't their vibe. And he was like, look at these fucking old people. Let's do Twist and Shout, and they lost their fucking shit.
Oh, everybody loves Twist and Shout.
Yeah.
I remember when I used to twist and shout.
My cat just came to.
Oh.
He's a cat guy.
We got a good kitty on our hands. Good kitty alert. If my cat found out I was doing this, she'd be really mad at me.
Oh, she doesn't like other cats?
Well, she's,
jealous.
She loves me.
She's a typical woman.
She loves me more than anything. Yeah, exactly. Exactly. Your cat's super cute, though.
Yeah, I got cuties.
How old is that guy?
He's 3 years old. He's tiny, but he's 3 years old.
Oh, wow. He's just a little kitty.
Yeah.
When I adopted my cat, she was a full-blown woman.
Really?
She was like 6 or 7.
Is she fixed?
Yes.
Does she have a mate? Like, does she go in heat and have a mating call, or that's?
I don't know what that looks like. I don't think she's done that. I don't know anything about animals in the sense like I know things now.
Yeah.
But I had never had a pet or interacted with an animal until I was 30 years old.
Really?
I just adopted because my parents were crazy people from Queens.
Yeah. Oh, they didn't like pets.
And they hate animals.
Dude, you sound like exactly like my Italian family.
Yeah. That's why I'm saying they're all nuts.
With the neurotic OCD stuff. I remember my grandfather, bless my grandfather, he's dead. He used to hit us when we touched the wall.
Yeah. That's the wall.
He would paint the wall, and he was very meticulous about how everything was in his house. He built his own house, and he wanted everything a certain way. And you would get hit if you touched the wall.
Don't you touch the wall. That's on my wall. Yeah.
Yeah, he was it. But he was like a great guy, and he was actually a sweet person, but he would kick the shit out of you if you touched the wall.
He sounds really nice. He sounds like a sweet guy. Well, I would be like, Mom, Dad, can we get a dog? And they'd be like, a dog? What are you, an asshole? Yeah, we're gonna have a fucking live animal in here eating everything.
They don't like dogs.
They hate animals.
They were okay with cats, but they fucking hate dogs. My dad hates dogs. My aunts hate dogs.
My parents hate me for getting a cat. My dad was like, it makes no sense. It makes no sense. That was his feedback.
I'll tell you why. I'm going to tell the world why it makes sense to adopt a cat, because there are a lot of homeless cats. There's ones in my backyard that deserve...
Save a cat today.
Yeah, they deserve love and they deserve a home. And
they don't deserve to be out in the mean streets of New Jersey. Save a cat.
Yeah, come on.
Go
fuck yourself.
Save a cat. Go fuck
asshole.
Don't touch my wall, but go save a cat. Yeah, no, I know. Well, also a good reason to adopt a cat is because it might change you as a person.
Yeah.
Like I changed a lot through feeling loved by another organism.
You never felt that before?
Not really. I told you I was insane. Not a ton of love.
What's your love life like?
Well, sometimes she, nibbles on the food till like 1 or 2 in the morning, but then we always cuddle a little bit after that. Like she makes time for me. Yeah. That's my main love life. I'm married to the game, dude. I just do stand up.
That's true.
I'm married to Lucky microphone.
I was just thinking about this the
mic.
other day. I'm again, a lot of shout outs today. Back to my ex Robbie. Shout out to Robbie.
Robbie.
One of the reasons, we had communication issues because we communicated differently. But another reason we didn't work out is because we were both very work focused to the point where we didn't have any time, like quality time together. Like he's a musician. I didn't start doing comedy till after we broke up, but we were both like grinding at music. I wanted a little time together, just once a week. And he was so into the game that he was like, no, like this is my life. I'll hang out with you like 2:00 on a Tuesday, but at night I do my shit. And I'm learning. You like that? Hey, and all power to him. All power to him. I admire his work ethic. I actually really do. I'm very inspired by it. But this year I've lived by myself for a whole year, and I kind of was influenced by that a little bit. I was like, I'm single. Fuck it. I'm gonna grind. I'm gonna do my shit. But I'm learning, and I learned this year that I want both. I want a relationship and a career, and I think the only way that's gonna work is if I'm with someone who's cool with my career.
Yeah.
But I don't necessarily want to be the Robbie type who's like 100% grind every single second. I would like 1 day a week for a relationship. You know what I mean?
I don't know. It has to be so broken out like and organized that way.
Yeah.
I hear you.
Yeah.
I don't know. Like my whole thing was I don't feel like I have space, like time, like space for that.
Yeah.
Not even time. It's just space for that in my brain.
Yeah.
But that said, I think it's more about, I don't know anything about relationships. I've been in relationships before, not recently. But it's about mutually shared values and goals, So like if you value, my biggest fear as a guy in his 30s is meeting someone and then them being like, hey, also like we're going to move to the suburbs and like we're going to like start a family.
That's true. It could be like you probably don't want kids, right? Being that you're
from where I sit right now, all I want is to do stand up every day.
Yeah.
So it's like I can't speak to where I'll be 10 years from now. Like I'm always open to things changing. I won't say I'm like this way one way or another.
Yeah, but right now
and as historically until this point, I don't want that stuff.
Yeah.
And so it's like, but like I'm open to meeting somebody that's like, I don't know, like we're just focused on our stuff, and then, like, so that's just kind of, that's what I think. But I don't, like, again, I don't know.
I think the world, it's so funny. I think the world is like people are evolving to want to procreate less.
Yeah.
I don't.
Well, they should.
There's
too many people.
There's too many comedians.
There's too many comedians. Yeah.
There's too many.
We need
comedians.
less comics.
There's less comics. Less. My last podcast guest Jesse, he joked. I was like, do you think there's too many comedians? He's like, there's too many fucking everything. And I started losing my shit when he said that. But it's true. It's like, lot of people in the world, and I'm not saying I would never be a parent. I agree with you that right now I'm like, no, it's not on my mind right now. Maybe someday I could see myself doing that, but not anytime soon.
Yeah.
But there are genuine questions I have about, is it ethical to even bring a kid into the world right now? Like, you know what I mean?
I don't know. I mean, ethics aside.
Yeah.
Is it ethical to do anything? Is it ethical to throw a Doritos bag in the garbage? You know what I mean? Like, it's tough ethically just being a human being in 2021, or two almost. But I don't know. I mean, you're right though. I mean, that actually is a good point. Like, it's
listen, I tell jokes about suicide and I count the fucking. I have OCD. I count how many times. I don't count, but I check the fucking oven probably 100 times. Would it be ethical for me to recreate that painful existence, soul into another body?
Mark Maron has a joke. You know Mark Maron?
Yes.
Okay, he's one of my favorite people on the planet, and he has a bit. So it's a Mark Maron bit. I just want to be clear about that. Where it's like he's like, before you decide to have kids, you have to ask yourself if you have a void that you're trying to fill that with kids, but that won't really solve your problem, right?
Yeah.
And if you don't, like, if you're like you're rooted in reality and you just want to like have kids and experience that joy, then do it. But if you have the void, and then you have a kid, the kid gets the void, and then the void travels down generation after generation.
Yeah.
So his joke is like, my great grandfather, whatever. I'm not doing it as funny as him, but he's like, he had this void and now I have it.
You're doing it sad.
well, it is. It's a sad commentary, but it's missing the punchline.
No, I know. Like hearing it out of joke context and just hearing this, hearing the subject, it's true.
Yeah,
it's true.
The void gets passed down.
Yeah. What the fuck did you guys pass?
You don't need to pass down the void.
And Grandpa, what did you guys pass to me?
Right.
What the fuck?
Well, that's why I try to rebel against that stuff. Like, I'm very rebellious. You know what I mean? In that sense, like that's why I got a cat. I remember thinking like, fuck my parents, and I got a cat.
By the way, the argument with the cats and dogs thing.
Ugh.
Why do people think that dogs are better than cats?
People aren't gonna like my opinions on this. They're not gonna like it. But I think that, yeah, man. If you want something to love you blindly, then go get a dog. Like oh, I love you. Like, I just love you regardless. But a cat, you got to earn it. Like, I learned a lot of skills. I like it too.
I like that with a cat. You have to develop trust with them.
It's a relationship.
Yeah.
It's not one thing blindly loves you and then you get all the benefit from the dog. It's like with a cat, it's a fucking relationship.
Yeah. And I think love, genuine love, speaking of it, I don't know what it is. Again, I'm just an idiot on a podcast, but
no.
I'm learning.
You know what love is.
I think what it is being able to care about somebody else and do what's best for them regardless of their flaws. Mm-hmm. And cats aren't these blindly loving creatures.
I love you.
They're very flawed.
Right.
And I have one cat that's a fucking asshole. It's the one that hasn't come out. This cat's perfect, by the way.
He's an incredible guy.
He's amazing. Like, you can
He's
see
so
him right.
cute.
Jazzy is an amazing cat.
He's
Neo,
killing me, actually. Yeah.
I lived in the last house I lived in. Robbie, he hated Neo. He was, when we broke up, he's like, I can't wait to get that fucking Neo out of here. And I started crying.
Well, I mean, cats can be assholes, but
I love Neo because I know, like, I've taken the time to understand him. And I think that's what love is. It's like, yeah, this little guy's fucking weird. He's kind of in his own world. He doesn't always pay attention, but I care about this little fucker. You know what I mean? And I do connect with him, and he does jump next to me and purrs next to me, not the way Jazzy does, but on his own time in his own way. And that's what love is. It's like learning to accept people's flaws and what makes them unique. And that's why I think cats do make you a better person that way, where it really forces you to kind of get on, I don't know, I'm getting so into it. It forces you to get in the perspective of that creature to get to understand them. Am I making any sense, or am I going fucking nuts?
I think that there's 3 components to a good relationship with a cat, which translates to probably a good relationship with a human.
Yeah.
I noticed that when I started interacting with my cat, that there's 3 things that we have going for us is trust, communication, and respect. Trust, admiration, and respect.
Okay.
So, first of all, the skill that I had to develop to get
communication. How are you gonna communicate?
No. But I was really bad at listening. I was really good at talking.
Yeah.
Like, I've always been really good at talking, but I was not so great at listening. Like, I couldn't listen when people were talking. The cat, because I know this is gonna sound crazy, but when I first got her, I couldn't be like, "What's wrong? Like, are you hungry?" Like, and that would frustrate me. But I had to like listen for like her body language and her cues to like get to know her personality.
That makes sense. Yeah.
It's okay, so listening. But now that we have a functional relationship where I listen to her and she listens to me, I think, like I said, trust, admiration, and respect. Because she eventually started trusting me, and like when I used to go pet her when I first got her, she'd just whack me and I would be bleeding everywhere and stuff. But now she lets you never do that now because she trusts me. She knows I'm not gonna like throw her out the window or something. Yeah. She admires me. Like, I can tell when she's like sitting like staring at me that she just thinks I'm the greatest person in the world, you know? And I feel the same way about her. I think she's the best cat in the world.
Aww.
Right? And then respect. Like, we respect each other. We're like, I don't fuck with her. If she was doing what your cat's doing right now, I wouldn't try to rub her belly.
That's so
boundaries.
That's true. That is so fucking true. That made me think about that too, because how many times in your regular relationships with friends, family, girlfriends, whatever, maybe this is just me, but there have been incidences where I overstepped somebody's boundary and didn't respect them because I wanted a certain need met and I wanted things my way, and I was aggressive in certain ways because I'm like, but with an animal, if you love them, you don't do that. You know what I mean? Like, he doesn't like being rubbed on his belly, so I'm not going to do that. But with a human, you might be like, hey, you better fucking that's what makes relationships, I think, work. Yeah.
Is like, it's not about like what you get out of it. You know what I mean? Like, it's like a lot of people just like are like, dude, like, I'm in this relationship. It's awesome. I get to do this. I get to do that. Like, she does this. Like, it's like, nah, it's like, it's a mutual understanding of boundaries. And like all that other stuff works when you have respect, admiration, and whatever the other thing I said was. So, yeah.
Yeah.
We can learn a lot from the animals, you know?
We can learn.
And then when you're all disconnected from them, like, you become like crazy Italian people, you know? That's the alternative.
I can relate to what you said about not being able to listen very well. I've been listening to you during this podcast.
What? No, I'm just kidding. I'm good at listening.
Hey, FYI, I have been looking this way, and it's not because I'm ignoring him. It's because I have a jacked up audio interface that randomly unplugs. So I've been randomly looking this way just to check.
It's been going good, though.
It's been going good.
All the levels
I'm
are
not ignoring.
Mwah.
But no, I can relate to what you said though, because I used to have serious issues paying attention to people, and I'll be honest, it was through podcasting that I started learning to become a better listener.
Same.
Because it's a fucking podcast. I have to listen.
Like, and listening is so much. Listening is part of stand-up. Listening to the vibes of the audience. Listening for the room. Listening is everything in a relationship. Listening to the other person. And podcasting too. Like, I used to podcast. I don't podcast anymore right now.
Why not?
Because I don't want to. I just don't feel compelled to do it right now.
Okay.
But that's why I'm so glad to be here. I appreciate you having me, because I love doing this shit. I was telling you when we came over the car, like, I love doing it. I just don't do it myself. I had a podcast with an old friend of mine from home for many years. That was I would describe it as mildly popular. Yeah. People listened to it. We used to get like emails and stuff. Yeah. And it was pretty funny. Then it ran its course, and then I started my own thing, which was my little COVID project while we weren't doing stand-up. And it just served its purpose, and then I felt like it no longer was me anymore. So now I just don't have one, but I love being able to do other people's stuff.
I feel like I like doing, well, first of all, there's too many podcasts right now. Yeah. Too many people making podcasts, too many comedians. But I like to do it because I feel like it's actually an art form that I love.
Yeah, it's great.
I listen to tons of podcasts, so I'm like, why don't I just be the thing that I love? You know what I mean? It makes sense. But also, I do feel like it's a fun way for me to keep a social media presence. Yeah. You know what I mean? Because I do feel like as a comedian, musician, etc., it's important to people know who you are. Right. So I feel like this is a good, like, I don't want to go on TikTok. Like, I have a TikTok, but I don't use it. I am on Instagram, but I would say, and I feel like Instagram is for our generation. Like, we're Instagram hoes in our generation. But as far as, I would say this is the best platform for me to feel relevant, because I actually, it's genuine. Like, if I were to do a TikTok right now, it wouldn't be genuinely me. It would just be me trying to be noticed.
Appeal to kids. Yeah.
Yeah. You know what I mean? Appeal to kids. This actually feels right to me. I love podcasting, and so it's like a good way for me to kind of stay with everybody, you know?
I'm with you. I feel it. You
feel the energy?
I'm enjoying it. Yeah, no, for sure. I mean, I've done a podcast before where, like, I was talking to the person who's podcasting. It could be
awkward, yeah.
It could be horrible, yeah. Yeah. And I was like, I don't know what I'm doing right now. I don't feel that way here. I feel the genuineness of your art form.
I don't want to sound arrogant. That's what I'm saying. It's not about arrogance. It's about, because I'm very self-critical in the way I perform in a band, and I'm very self-critical of my stand-up. But I am self-critical of my podcast, but I do feel most natural when I'm podcasting.
Nice.
For whatever reason. And it's really fucking weird because I'm not the best conversationalist. Like, I'm very...
That's not true. I think you're incredible conversationalist.
Really? Yeah. I can be...
You're right.
But I mean, in real life, I can be... When I'm not podcasting, I can be very socially awkward. Uh-huh. Super socially awkward. But for some reason, when the camera's on and everything's set up, it just, like, it locks me in.
Totally.
I don't know why.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah.
That doesn't not make sense. I think most people come alive when the lights are on and stuff like that. You know what I mean? It's the stage, man. No one wants to break the fourth wall and be in reality.
Yeah.
But that's good. Like, I think it's working for you. It's cool. I'm with you. I love podcasting for the same reasons it taught me to listen. I feel very natural and at home. I love doing it. I love having a one-on-one subjective conversation with another person. I think podcasts... The idea of the long form art conversation, people are starved for it, because, like, you think of something like TikTok or Instagram, it's these like 8-second consumable bits, which, fine, that might pander to a generation of people that, like, that's how they consume content, and, like, that might be satisfying for a second, because it's like, to me, I think of it like big bursts of dopamine in the brain. Like, you get this, like, burst, it's like a slot machine, bling, and then you move on with your life. But, like, a long form conversation forces you to be actively listening and engaged, and then reflect on yourself and listen and you know, it's more of a thing to be involved with. So I think if you feel natural doing it, I think people are starved for it to listen to it anyway.
I do think it's funny what you said about that, like, the way people are now with wanting that quick dopamine hit, and then it goes... I do feel like the human brain is changing, and because of technology, I feel like we are so, and this isn't just me speculating. I was literally listening to a Lex Friedman podcast today, and he was talking I don't remember the name of his guest that he had, but it was on Lex Fridman, and he was talking, it was probably like a neuroscientist or something, and he was talking about how the human brain is literally changing and evolving differently, and there's kind of no way to turn back from it at this point. A lot of people in our generation are like, you know, the long form, like the way we like things, kind of more old school like that, the long form, like you said. But the guy on this Lex Fridman podcast, he was explaining that, but a big part of human nature is to feel like you belong somewhere. So if some kid sees all his friends on TikTok, he's going to want to go on TikTok just to feel like he belongs somewhere, and he has that sense of closeness. So it's literally changing the human brain, the way we're evolving. People don't need memory anymore. You know what I mean?
Right.
I remember one time I was playing with a little kid. Do you remember that game called Memory where we would put little cards out and flip them over and try to like find the two cards that matched?
Sort of. Speaking of memory, I don't remember that. I never real childhood.
Anybody who's my age, if you were a kid, if you're like in your 30s, there was this card game called Memory, and you would just lay all these cards upside down, and there would be like two fishes and two. Oh. Yeah, and they would be scattered. And I tried to play that with a little kid once, and he's like, why would I?
Yeah, let's go on TikTok and trash our brains.
He was like, why do I even? He's like, this is so stupid. And I'm like, you're right. It is kind of stupid to you, because why the fuck? Like you can just Google like anything. Why would you need to develop your memory? You know what I mean?
You know, when I was 23 years old, which was a decade ago now.
Yeah. And shout out to being 33.
Shout out to being 33. But irrelevant though, because it was a decade ago, a long time ago, quote unquote. An ex-girlfriend of mine gave me a book for my 23rd birthday. I still have it on my shelf. I look at it sometimes still.
Aww.
It was called I miss you. It was called is the internet changing the way you think? Yeah. And this was 10 years ago, and it was all about what you just described, that like it is, and it's going to get worse, and like you kind of like watch these trends, and but that's fine. Like let it change. I mean, like people are going to change, you know what I mean? I'm with it. Yeah. I just think that like but I think that underneath all of it is this, that people do feel kind of starved for like the long, like there's gonna be that one kid who's like, our version of that would be like, I only collect like regular CD vinyls. Like that's like I collect vintage vinyls. You know what I mean? Like those types of kids that we had. Like you just said, you're one of those. There's going to be those kids that are like, I don't go to TikTok. I just listen to podcasts. Yeah,
like, you know what I mean? So
exactly.
There's going to be that version of whatever it is.
And people might burn out. Like I, for example, like burned out from Facebook. Like I stopped using it, but I was a power user of Facebook at one point. When I was in college and stuff. Hell yeah, Facebook was the shit. All your friends were on there. You got to post pictures of you drinking. Yeah. You got to call people losers. Like my Facebook status would just be like, John Murphy is an asshole. 12 likes, pictures of us chugging beers. You know, Facebook was everything. But then over time, I was like, I hate this. I can't do this anymore. Logging into it started to feel like a chore. I start to surf it without having any passive, like I was like passive, any active engagement. Like I wouldn't be like, let me check Facebook. I started to notice that I was just automatically, robotically checking Facebook, and it made me hate myself.
I do that to Instagram.
Well, they're the same thing.
Are you addicted to Instagram?
I don't think so, because I try to manage my relationship with it actively, but I think I was addicted to Facebook, and I got off Facebook and I stuck with Instagram because I was like, it's just pictures, but now it's super crazy too. Yeah. So I don't know. I'm addicted to it in the sense that I feel a need to check it, even though nothing's happening. I find my body moves, like my fingers. I purposely put my Instagram on my iPhone like many pages away. It's like the last page. Smart. And it's in a folder that says stay out. Whoa. But my finger, now it's actually worse because I'm going to go on it no matter what. Now my finger just muscle memory knows how to swipe like 7 pages, like and goes on it. You know what I mean? What else is in that folder? Nothing like that. Okay. It's just Instagram. Like, it's not a pornographic folder. It's I didn't mean it like that. I was like, it's like the New York Times. I don't know. Like, no. What else is in the stay out folder? And stuff like that. I think Facebook, Messenger, and Instagram. But I just keep going in Facebook's in another folder within the folder that says no, seriously, stay out. I don't have a Facebook addiction. I think Facebook's boring. Yeah, well now it is, because now it's just old people like. That's what I always. Like my Aunt Kathy got the vaccine and she's dead. You know what I mean? Yeah. So it's like you don't need to go into Facebook for any reason. Nobody cares. Okay, maybe I didn't know the power of Facebook while it was popular for our age, because I actually went through I don't think a lot of my listeners know this.
if they're even going to listen at this point of the podcast, but I do have people that
they're listening. They're hyper engaged with this content. I
went through a full on media detox from the ages 20. I think it started. I went off Facebook 23, and it lasted till I was about 28. And that's a pretty
serious.
But I didn't have text message. That's
serious. That's crazy.
I didn't have any social media. I didn't have Facebook. It was like a good 6 years.
That's so much time not to be on it.
A lot of people, I started piano when I was 23.
Really?
And a lot of people say that, like, you didn't play your whole life. And I'm like, no, I just didn't have media for 6 years. So imagine here's the thing though. I feel like now, if to be a comedian, you need to be on social media, but imagine the possibilities if you didn't have social media. Like imagine if someone could do your social media for you so that you had that presence and they could contact you to say, hey, I booked you a gig, blah, blah, blah. But imagine if you could free up all that time and space that you had no contact to your phone.
Yeah, that would arguably be better. But I do think when I was 23, it would have been impossible.
Impossible?
Yeah, that's when I was the most engaged.
I didn't do it from age 23 to like 28. And then I finally did it at 28 when I was like, okay, I want to be a professional comedian, musician, so I have to.
Gotcha.
But
you weren't sucked in just as a user.
But here's the thing. It was nice for me because I had all this free time to do things and work out and all that stuff. My cat just meowed.
Yeah.
But I was truly kind of dumb. Like, because I had no idea, but maybe blissfully dumb. But
what are you dumb about?
I had no idea.
You don't get more intelligent by being on Facebook.
I had no idea what was going on around me at all.
Yeah, but I know, but that's the whole positioning of these social media things, that you're left out of some kind of conversation if you don't participate.
But I mean, it was like I knew nothing. Like there would be some serious catastrophe. Like there would be like the Boston the Boston Marathon or like something like that, and I'd be like, hey, how's it going? Anything new today?
Well, you could check the news. You don't need to be on
I didn't do that. I didn't do anything.
I think that's more your problem than not being on Facebook. I don't think you should get your news from Facebook. You know what I mean? I just think it's wild to, like, at that age to not, because everybody, that's like, you're one of those people who, like, would get invited to this party, but you weren't on Facebook, so you don't get invited. Because, like, here's an event.
That's the thing. People assumed that I must have not had a life. It wasn't true. My life.
That's my assumption.
The life just happened differently. I would just meet people in person, and they'd be like, hey, I have this party Friday. Would you like to come? Okay. And I would go. I didn't know everything constantly, but I had a life. You know what I mean? I had things to do.
All right.
It just happened differently. It just happened organically.
I'm not saying you have no life without social. Like, you know, I regret, like, you know, like when I was younger, I wouldn't say I was into it. It was just embedded into my social life. That's what they wanted. You know, I wasted so much time on it.
Yeah.
So you didn't do that. That's good. That's a good thing.
It was. I'm not gonna lie.
You got to focus on your mid-20s piano.
Yeah. So I'm really grateful for that time I had. But now that I'm back on social media, I can't exist. I mean, I wouldn't have met you if I didn't have it. I met you because of Instagram.
I guess that's true.
So I really do believe now that there is a huge power in the connections that I'm making on social media, but I'm also aware of how incredibly addicted. Like it's
bad for your brain.
I get like a dopamine rush from the likes.
Yeah,
and this is embarrassing, but
no,
I
everybody
love
does.
the likes.
No, everybody. That's how the system functions.
Yeah,
it's a sourcing of validation from people. And the reason that you keep re-engaging with it is because every day is a new opportunity for further validation from people.
Here's another thing I do. If I have a story, I check if the guy liked. Like if I like somebody, I'll be like, did they watch it? Like,
wow, really?
It's like obsessive. Yeah.
I guess that's normal. I've never done that, but I can see why somebody would do that. That's because I know nobody likes me, so I'm not looking at it. But I think
that's why they're there. I think they want it. Why else would they show you who follows you unless they knew that people would be curious to know? Like, why else would it? I mean, I can understand them being like, oh, X amount of people followed your story, but why do they specifically tell you who followed you if they didn't know that people would be really curious and want to check?
Andrea, you're making a great point. I never thought about it before, but I think you're right. I guess people want to know.
Yeah.
I very rarely look at that, but I guess it's just because I never thought of it that way. That's interesting, though. That's true. I should see who looks.
You don't have to.
No, I need to know. Now I kind of want to know who's watching.
Did I make you feel weird because you don't check?
No, I mean, I check that, like, there's engagement.
Yeah.
Especially if something gets, like, if I post a story and then it gets restoried by other people, I think it's kind of cool to be like, oh wow, like all these people saw this.
Yeah.
But like I don't I never think about the individuals. I never really thought about that. That's interesting.
I don't obsessively check like every single person, but if there's like a specific person I like I have a crush on, I'm like, oh, I wonder if they saw this.
No, I get that. That's nice.
Yeah.
It's a nice use of it. It's like a pleasant thing. You can't hate that. That's not evil.
No, it's not evil.
Yeah. Like, you know, like dopamine rush, you know, sourcing validation, that might be like Mark Zuckerberg metaverse evil, but like just checking to see if your crush saw your story, that's not evil. That's okay. That's okay. You can continue that. I give you permission to continue that behavior.
Okay, it's not
I'm going to start doing it too.
It's not unhealthy for me.
It's better. It's good for you, actually.
You're going to start doing it?
Yeah. I'm going to start checking. I'm going to make sure everybody's looking. And if people don't look at my stuff, I'm going to text them and say, I noticed that you didn't look at my
See, that's where it's unhealthy.
Instagram story.
That's where it's unhealthy because, like, let's say you like a girl, right?
Uh-huh.
And you see, oh my God, she checked my story.
Yeah.
Then it gets you like, what if I post this? Will she check this? And then what if
and then
one
you're just
day she
things.
doesn't check it and then you want to kill yourself?
Well, what if I'm posting things just for her and then she wants to kill herself? Then she's like, why is this guy's getting weird now? You know, I'm like, hey, Kathy, I know you love plants.
I actually figured this one out too. This has happened to me in the past. Maybe this is just a woman thing. Maybe only women do this, but
that's just a woman thing.
If I know a guy that I like checks my stories, I will start putting up like cute pictures. Like, oh, he looks...
Really?
And what ends up happening is you end up attracting all these other people because they think it's for them.
They're like, oh, yeah, all the boys in detention class are like, whoa, Andrea's posting again, boys. Whoa, holy shit.
You'll be like, I'm trying to get this guy's attention. Let me post like I'm at the gym, like a hot pic.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden, all these like other dudes that you weren't trying to get their attention are like, hey,
what's up? Remember I met you in alternative school? That's cool. No, I mean, I've never thought to use social media that way, but I might just be an idiot.
It might be a female thing.
It may
Maybe
be.
It's just me. Maybe I'm just fucking crazy.
Nah.
I know I can't be the only person doing it.
People probably do it. I don't know. I've never thought to do it that way. That's interesting. That's crazy. To target people you want to marry. That's maybe I should do that. I should start picking women and trying to get them to look at my stories. I think I'm cool.
Now you're going to check who watches stories and you might not know who does. You might be surprised.
You're right. I might be shocked.
Also, the person who's on the top of your story is your biggest stalker.
No. Get out of here. Is that real? They're like your number one subscriber?
I think the phone knows who engages with you more, or it could be somebody that you engage with a lot, or it could be somebody who like that was not an appropriate use of like. No,
it was good. I sanction it.
Okay.
Yeah.
It could be someone who like. No, it's all right. I can use it.
No, I'm just kidding. I'm gonna look right now to see who my biggest.
Let's see. What if I was it?
Man.
Yeah, but okay. If I was it, wait, am I it?
It's Isaac G.
So the phone. Where am I in the system? Because I know I watch.
You're way down there. You're not a fan at all. You're not even registering.
No, I'm pretty good. I'm like in the top.
You're
middle.
far down there.
How many? You got a lot. So I'm actually
a popular guy.
I'm pretty up there. Look at that.
Oh my God, that's your story.
But here's the thing: if I'm pretty up there, it either means I stalk you or you stalk me.
I do stalk you, but that doesn't mean that I check who stalks me. Yeah, as soon as you started posting those gym pics, me and the guys from detention class got together and started stalking. But you're right; that makes sense that Isaac follows me the most. Good.
Yeah, Isaac, your boy.
That's right. He loves me.
But here's the thing: my theory is it might not be that he follows you the most. It could also be because the phone knows your friends.
Our phone knows that we're friends?
Yeah, because you might text each other
or
call each other.
Look at this. So I'm not going to say names, not necessary, but the second person, not a close friend. So just someone who's stalking me. Like someone
That's what I think.
I don't talk to all the time.
That's what I think. Let me see.
Like I don't really know that person that well.
Is that a girl or a guy?
It's a girl.
So she probably likes you.
Wow.
Because if you're not stalking her and she's coming up, she engages with your content a lot.
Wow, I guess you like flyers. That's cool.
This totally is a girl way to look at things because remember back in the day, women would have those board games, like girls would have those board games like Crush and like, do you know what I'm talking about? Like whose crush is who, like type of thing. It is a thing. Like I think women are really into like who's this and I think this is a female. This is the way the female brain works.
I'm into it though. I'd like to co-opt this. I'm going to start monitoring it like pretty seriously. I actually might hit up my second largest view after Isaac and ask them out.
Do it.
No, I'm not gonna.
I
would never.
You probably don't.
I noticed that you love my content.
You probably don't like them back.
I like them. I mean, I don't stalk them back.
Yeah.
No, I don't. I follow them though. I do watch. Like, you know how some people, you've been watching them on social media for so long that they just kind of become content in your life.
Yeah.
But I don't have like any active feelings or any. They're just. I'm like, oh, like I don't know. They're making cookies, great. Like, I don't know. It's a robotic thing, sort of.
Yeah.
But I never thought to use it that way, and I'm pretty stoked. It's pretty weird.
I might have just like taught you a really unhealthy habit though.
I didn't know women cared about that kind of stuff anymore. Yeah. That's wild. I learned something new today.
Really?
Yeah.
You thought women were just like lifeless?
Yeah, no, exactly. That's exactly. No, I meant in terms of social media, not in terms of feelings. It's like, I just never thought that. I never thought about that, but you're right.
Yeah.
Maybe there's like a fantastical sort of like reality show sort of thing to it.
Yeah.
I don't know. What do I know about women? Nothing. Clearly nothing.
You do have a female cat.
And thus I know everything about women. Respect, love, and admiration.
Okay, I think we've been going. Let's see, how are we doing on time? Holy shit, have we really been going that long? God damn, that felt like 5 minutes. So I told him we were only going to record for an hour. We've been going for almost 2 hours.
See what happens when you don't say like? Time just fly by.
That's true. I didn't. If you guys see my last episode 39 and you compare it to this episode, I reduced a lot of likes. I made a lot of improvement.
I can't believe we spoke for 2 hours. Honestly, I feel like it's like Joe Rogan podcast. This is a long one.
Yeah,
it's a long one.
I'm probably gonna have to split it up in 2, which is actually good because then I don't have to record next week. So.
You don't have to. You could cut it down to 30, just a tight 30.
30, just 30 minutes or 30 separate podcasts.
30 minutes, yeah, 30 separate podcasts, 10 minutes each.
Okay, so we're gonna call it. We're going to wrap it up for the day because I know you guys don't have the attention span. And plus, he's from New York, so I have to make sure he doesn't miss the train.
Yeah.
So if you enjoyed yourself today, this is the Pranzata Podcast. I don't know if I want to continue doing the opening and closing. Do you guys like it? Do you guys like when I introduce myself and the guest, or would you rather us just talk like Joe Rogan style? Let me know. But anyways, that's it. I'm so happy that I had him here today. Let them know where they can stalk you if they want to stalk you.
Yeah, thanks for having me, Andrea. I think you have a fabulous podcast.
Thank you.
If you want to stalk me like Andrea does, I'm if she's number 9 in my stalker list. I'm on Insta Ginsberg, Ginsberg, like the Supreme Court Justice or the poet who wrote Howl, which is my favorite book of poems. And yeah, that's it. Thanks. This was an amazing opportunity, which I will cherish for the rest of my life.
Thank you so much. Don't forget also to follow his comedy show, The Village. What's the handle?
At The Village Idiot, and thevillageIdiotNewYorkCity.com is our website where you can find out about dates and lineups and other exciting things.
And you might see me there once in a while.
And you might see Andrea there.
And that's it, guys. I hope you guys have a great night. It was a pleasure. Have a good night. Bye.